Okay, let's go ahead and get started. If I might ask Tom to do our invocation.
Heavenly Father, we meet here this afternoon to discuss the business of the city. We pray for your guidance. We pray that you would affect their hearts to do the right things for the city and for the citizens of our town. We pray, Heavenly Father, that you continue to bless us, that you continue to feed us, and that you continue to lead us. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tom. Mr. Patton.
Hey, y'all ready?
We're ready.
All right. First item on the agenda is the Sherwood and Wisdom County Aquatic Centers and Junior League Jungle Spray Ground. This is a request from the YMCA. The YMCA is operating our pools, our aquatic facilities, as well as our spray ground at UTPB Park. And the proposal that we have is an ordinance change that would allow us to go up in the after-hour rental costs. And that's per hour cost. That would be before public swim at 1 and after public swim at 7 o'clock at Woodson, Sherwood, and the spray ground at UTPB Park. Now, the price now would be an increase up to $380 per hour. At those two big facilities, you have to have 8 guards on deck. The 8,000 square foot of deck that we have for safety purposes, we can't go any less than eight people, no matter what the attendance levels are. So the reasoning for this is they have got a terrible increase in their labor costs. They can't keep kids for lifeguards. Last year, we had facilities shut down because we were short on lifeguards and the number of guards that we needed. And we had to close early or we wouldn't have them open at all. Also, the attendance that we had last year at the swimming pools was the worst attendance we've ever had in the history of the pools. So that also accounted in a spreadsheet that's attached to the agenda item. They prepared the spreadsheet. You'll see a significant loss in their revenues over their expenditures. So with this game plan, we are and have always wanted to have an affordable situation for children and families in the summertime to take advantage of our swimming pools. That's always been our philosophy. We would not touch those admission prices. We want it to be an affordable recreation in the summertime. And even Floyd Gwynn, after our rental rate would remain the same, so it would give an option that would be more affordable. But we would go up to $380 per hour for Woodson and Sherwood. Last year, we had so many people that called and wanted to rent the spray ground at UTPB after hours for birthdays.
Yes, ma'am.
385, yes ma'am.
Okay.
And then the spray ground, we had so many requests for after-hour birthday party rentals, corporate picnics and things. We want to offer now a rental time after 7 p.m. at UTPB spray ground, Jurassic Jungle, for $235 per hour, and that would cover their costs. Now, they're saying on that spreadsheet, if you'll notice too, there's a give or take about a $10,000 loss is what their predictions are. Those projections are based on current attendance levels. I suspect if we get a good year, now it's really crazy, and I don't know if y'all remember or not, but we had a lot of storms last year. We shut down a lot of days. It might be one cloud with a bunch of lightning, but the minute that we get lightning within 2 miles of the facilities, they have to close. And so that type of closures and stuff killed our attendance. And so I think with an increase in attendance, watching their concessions, making sure that they are accountable for their attendance, they won't have a problem in breaking even, and also being able to rent these facilities more for what they are truly incurring as far as the cost. And I think keeping the integrity of the pools affordable for families during the summertime, I think that's very important. Now, the second part of this, we would also raise their operational rates $30,000. Their basic contractual amount is about $172. We'd add $30,000 to that, and that would cover all the costs of the operation of pools. Of course, they do help clean in the mornings, and that's for staffing levels. That's also to help them implement a program which we came up with, where these kids, lifeguards, managers that are the employees on staff, cashiers, if they stay the whole summer and don't abandon us at the end of the summertime and go to grandma's house and not tell us, and then we're short staffed, they'll get a $250 bonus for staying the entire period that we're open. That way, we're trying to ensure that we're gonna have some facilities open at the end of the summertime. So that's gonna help with those costs. Still, that process and their operations is cheaper than us doing it in-house. Scott did the takeoffs on us, taking over the program, doing our own hiring and running it within the city, and they can still more effectively do it efficient-wise, cost-wise.
Do we, I mean, we just rent it out. Do we provide any supervision or do we have any say in how they do? I mean, it seems to me, because it was hot last year, I mean, it seems strange that our attendance would be down. Is there something, I know you said there were closures because
A
of
lot of
storms, but,
If you'll, okay, a lot of it, through all these years, we work on a schedule with ECIC. And when the kids, when they start football practice and band camp and all that, if there's some reason they start a day or two earlier, we have to give them a week off before those camps start. So we're closing around August the 1st in a lot of times.
oh,
If we're open from Memorial Day until August the 1st, sometimes we will only have a 10-week operational period. Then you take about a week and a half of days that we'll have to close because of bad weather. And there were several days that we didn't have staff. They had to move all the people from Floyd Gwynn over to Sherwood and close Floyd Gwynn, and vice versa on several different occasions because they just didn't have the staff. But it's pretty amazing as it gets towards the end of the summer, and we've incurred this for 30 years now. The kids, they want to go see grandma, they want to go on last minute vacation, and they're gone. They don't even call. They don't show up. Now, they won't get hired the next year. What they do, they keep note of who's done that to us and stuff, but we're trying to get the good people to repeat. They're gonna give them a little incentive per hour raise if you come back, and if you stay the whole season, you're gonna get a little bit of incentive.
The starting guard rate will be $15 this year.
Yeah.
and so why do we have to close? I mean, why do we have to close the week before because of band or what
Well,
was it?
if the kids are going to band
If they're
camp,
going to band camp,
yeah,
but I mean.
they're getting ready. They're getting, and they'll just quit coming. And the coaches.
You're talking about the YMCA?
The workers.
The workers.
The workers, yeah.
Yeah.
The kids and the lifeguards and all that, yeah, they're getting off.
And all of our managers and assistant managers are typically coaches.
Same way.
Yeah, they're all
It's a
coaches.
system, so.
And so it really is, and we're all competing for lifeguards. I mean, Country Club and everybody else in town that's got lifeguards, and I got word yesterday that Water Wonderland's not gonna open this year, but they'd like to look at that next year, and I'm like, there goes some more competition for guards. You know, it's really, and finding kids that wanna work, and for that short period of time, it's getting to be, it's always a challenge,
Is
especially.
there, do we offer any training for lifeguards?
They do.
They do,
Yeah,
so.
and they're certified American Red Cross, which we do require, and that's a big liability, but we require all that within our contract, and they handle all that. We do some of the more serious maintenance. They do daily maintenance, clean up the pools and stuff. But $15 is pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty good amount for an hour. Sure beats when I was a busboy at Red Lobster.
On the after hours, is that mostly ran for corporate, or is it mostly
Yeah,
not on
and-
family birthdays?
Private
Yeah.
party some.
We get some private parties, but like Little League is real big corporate, churches, we get a lot of, and what's really nice about our family aquatic centers, we design those to where there's accommodations from 0 entry depth all the way to something that the teenagers can do with the slides and diving board. So and then I put a lot of deck space out there so that if grandma comes and she don't wanna get in the water, there's places under the shade.
You truck up in the
Wait,
ground?
that was
Or-
offensive. I got in the water.
So if they want to sit in the shade and watch the kids or something, we have plenty of deck space in the shade where they can do that. So there's, I think there's a lot of opportunities for all types of recreation in our family aquatic center.
We haven't touched these fees since 2013. so.
And when I looked at it, I was thinking, wow, because, I've had the kids and we've been on all this stuff through the years, and it's like, whoa. But I did look at our sister city and they're a lot higher, so,
Yes.
a lot higher.
Yeah, they're, And they plan, like, and just like the YMCA said, you know, their philosophy, they're not trying to get rich off this, they're not trying to make a profit. They want to break even also. But they're not so, also in a situation, their board's not gonna be happy if they're losing money. But that was a significant hit that they took last year, and it was their first year, and they expected to probably lose some money and try to get their feet wet on the operations and see how everything goes. And I felt that I worked with them, Scott, we all got together and worked with them. The Park and Recreation Advisory Board reviewed this, they made a recommendation. We had a subcommittee beforehand, the advisory board has recommended this, and I think their key was, as we've always stated, keeping the front gate affordable. Now, there's also, if y'all saw in the rate structure, we've got family night at Woodson and at Sherwood. Family of 4 can go for $1 for a couple hours per person, that's really cheap. But there's also a philosophy with the swimming pools. If there's a kid that shows up and he wants to swim, we're not turning him, he is not gonna be, or she is not gonna be turned away. They can go pick up trash for 15 minutes and they can get in. I mean, that's something that the city needs to, we need to accommodate children and keep them off the streets and doing bad things and accommodate them with something. But they don't get it for free.
Right.
Can kids come unsupervised?
Under a certain height, they're not allowed so, but we are probably the biggest daycare center in
That's what I was
the
curious
summertime.
about.
Yeah, when we really find out when we have a bad storm that blows in the afternoon and there's a lot of lightning and we have to close early, there'll be 50 kids at Sherwood waiting for their moms to come. And their moms won't come until after 7 o'clock because they're supposed to be there, so we're watching the kids. Cheap babysitting service for $2.50 for the whole day. Don't you get
Wow.
any ideas, Patrick?
I am.
Natasha's bringing the kid over. Yeah.
Any other questions, Steve? Thanks, Steve.
Great, thank y'all.
Thank you.
We'll have this,
Thank you.
it'll be the first reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
Mayor Vaughn?
This item is to authorize the abandonment of alley between South Grand and South Lee, just north of Pearl. And the request was from Alpha and Omega, and it is approximately 0.045 acres of alley right away, and they have agreed to the compensation due for this abandonment, and we actually have the check already. And at the same time, we are retaining an easement for this area for our water line.
Question for Yvonne. Yvonne, did you ever check that, Tom, I think was gonna check that deal out next to the night machine? Do y'all remember that? Tom, there you are!
Yes, sir.
I didn't see you leaning up there.
No, we have been in discussions with them. I haven't heard lately, and I haven't
Okay.
talked.
No
We'll check
problem.
on it, we'll do it.
No
We'll
problem,
check
I
on
just
it.
wanted, in case I
But
got
we have
asked.
been in- Yes, sir, we've been in
That's great.
discussions with them.
Thank
So
you.
does the applicant own, did you say both sides?
They own both sides, yes, and they will
Okay.
just extend the yard actually.
Oh, I see.
But do we still have a right of way,
We will have an easement
an easement?
to be able to access it.
Any other questions for Yvonne? Thanks, Yvonne, appreciate it. Chief Kirk, he looks like Philip next. There he is. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hey, Chief, how are y'all?
Very
Right,
good.
thank you. The first item is consider a local agreement, interlocal agreement with University of Texas Permian Basin to, basically this will just allow them to connect to the City of Odessa radio system, which they've been working towards for some time. This is the second entity that is seeking this agreement. This will bring in $49,920 to the city over the next 6 years. They pay, it's a graduated scale, as you see on the agenda item. They want to hook 52 radios to our system. There's no additional cost on our part.
And so UTPB and OC, is that the other one?
No, it is, it's been the Ector County Hospital District.
Okay, that's right.
I believe Odessa College, the Ector County obviously is gonna head that way.
I think OC is too, we're just,
In the school
it's a
district.
little farther along, yeah.
I believe the next entity will probably be the school district.
So is this rate pretty much in line with what you guys have worked out or projected based on the number of radios that they have? Or is this something they have?
No, this is the rate that we offered them.
Okay.
Yes, with the city.
All right, very good. Bring them on.
Bring them on.
Any other questions for Chief? Okay, Chief, consider resolution authorizing the city to accept appropriate funds for reimbursement.
This item is just very simply, we have an officer that is a task force officer assigned to the United States Marshal Service. He does 90% of his job with the Odessa Police Department, but he does do some work with the Marshal Service. That is actually more beneficial to us than it is to them, because they provide so many benefits to us as far as phone tracking and that sort of thing. And this is just $3,893 they want to give to us, provide to us to pay his overtime. He'll end up spending more, we'll end up spending more in overtime than what they provide, but at least this helps. There's no match, there's nothing from us.
Any other questions for Chief?
This isn't all of his overtime, this is just what they're reimbursing us.
That's correct. And the way it works, ma'am, is that we go through the process and it comes out of the city's coffers and then they reimburse. Yes. We also have
This
tax.
seems fair to you.
Well, it's better than nothing. And we do get a, no, we do get
It's
a,
different than fair.
well, we get a large benefit. Actually, if they paid us nothing, I think we would still come out on top here, because we get a large benefit from that connection,
Their service.
that relationship with the United States Marshal Service,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Huge benefit. And we have task force officers there with the FBI and with the DA.
Any further questions for him? Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Philip?
Yes, sir. Council, this first agenda item is to consider purchase of equipment for Ratliff Ranch. This is for 3 pieces of equipment. The first is a Workman. This is a unit that tows around blowers and rakes for the golf course. The next item is a Real Master mower. This mows the fairways. And the next item is a Grounds Master mower, and that mows the rough areas of the golf course. This would be purchased through Professional Turf Products through the buy board, and the total purchase is $159,045.87, and it is a scheduled and budgeted purchase.
Questions for Philip? Okay, Philip, next.
This,
Please.
Council, this next agenda item is to consider the purchase of 15 outfitted police package vehicles. The police marked units are on a rotation where we purchase 15 vehicles every fiscal year to keep our fleet at 8 years old. That's it's a plan that was put into place 4 years ago. We went to a take-home fleet for the police department. So with this purchase, it's the purchase of 15 units. One will be a Ghost Tahoe. The second will be there will be 2 K9 units that are Tahoes, and then there'll be 12 regular marked Tahoes. The total purchase price is $990,857.30. And this would be purchased through various purchasing cooperatives, and they will all be outfitted by Siddons Martin out of Houston. That's who we've used over the last 5 years.
That's the cost, including the radios?
Yes, ma'am, that's a turnkey, that's everything,
Okay.
the radar, the radios, the computers, the full out, the Tahoe, the painting, the lights, everything on it. When it's, I'm sorry,
And it is already budgeted.
correct, yes, ma'am, this is a budgeted purchase, and in your packet, I believe it should be an item attached. We identified 15 units that will be replaced, they're all 2013 models, and you can see their maintenance costs on them, and they range in miles from 48,000 miles to 113,000 miles, so they are ready to get out of the fleet.
Further questions? Okay, thanks, Philip. Natasha?
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
This agenda item is adding section 12-3-16 entitled Parking of Commercial Motor Vehicles to the City Code of Ordinances. Article 12-3 entitled Parking, Stopping, and Standing to the city code. You No, over the last few years, you see a lot of commercial vehicles parked around in commercial areas. There is an ordinance where you can enforce this in residential areas, but nothing where you can enforce it in commercial areas on the streets. And the PD came to legal and wanted us to help them be able to enforce this ordinance within the city of Odessa, but in areas zoned as commercial vehicles. So the commercial vehicles can now be ticketed, and it'll be easier to enforce this in commercial areas.
So these are the vehicles that are not supposed to be driving through town,
Right.
right? But so now they can't park.
Mm-hmm.
And is there some exception, like if they're unloading and that sort of thing?
Yes, there are exceptions, yes.
That's not considered parking in
Right.
there.
Yes.
Will code enforcement have to monitor, or will the police be able to help out?
I think the police department is going to enforce this primarily. This can help code enforcement, but I think the police department will. Chief
It was their
Garvey's giving me
request
the
Yeah, that's what I was
thumbs
saying,
up.
chief.
As he's hiding, you know.
No, absolutely, we're 1,000% in favor of this. It will give us more ammunition. Yes.
So what are some, this isn't the UPS
Oh, no.
trucks, right?
No, if they have business in town, it doesn't affect them at all. It's those that are parked overnight. That's what you're talking about,
Oh,
the people,
I'm
the
with
sand,
Water,
those things. And even if they're
I'm
parked
with
at
you.
a motel in a designated truck parking area, it doesn't count those things either. We don't wanna affect the business of the motels and hotels. That's not what this is about. This is just about being able to enforce the commercial vehicle ordinances that you guys have passed. And this gives us that much more power. There were some loopholes before, and this closes some of those.
Are you talking about parking in the Walmart parking lot or something to that effect, or what?
Street,
On the street,
On the
where
street?
drivers can't see around.
I'm with you.
things
and that
like
sort of thing. And with Walmart parking lot, if Walmart doesn't want them there, they can absolutely tell them to leave. If they don't leave, then we can deal with that way.
So if they're parked on private property and not on the street, then it wouldn't be affected.
Right.
No, but it gives them more of an ability to enforce it.
Yes.
I'm with you.
As long as a private property owner has given permission.
Right, right.
Right.
Do they have to have the same qualifications as the trucks and boats and everything else, that it either be paved or asphalt or something like that?
I don't think
Or
that's
private
in
property.
this
That's-
regulation.
That's not.
Okay.
But it's fulfilling, it's filling just that one kind of loophole, which someone, I think at the department's end, was a loophole big enough to drive a truck.
Any other questions? Thanks, Natasha. Thanks, Chief.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Gary, you're up.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, this is that ordinance that is just carrying forward, putting in the code book, codifying the result of that special charter election. Probably not any questions on that. I mean, on the next one, this is the one I just passed out, the map to you, approval of ordinance, annexed area, allocating annexed areas to single member districts. So you'll remember that you didn't annex any areas with people living there, so we're not actually adding voters to any of the districts, but we do have to, by law, add all land annexed to the city to one of the 5 existing single member districts. And you'll notice on this map, we had some just preliminary discussions earlier, and based on that, we've created this map. This is up to y'all to decide what we want. We'll have it on the next agenda for you to consider it on the first reading. But just what I wanted to point out, and for the media also, is that this is just reminding you again that you annexed areas in every direction. And so there are small strips at least being handed to every single member district. So Just another example of how the city really is growing in that
So
direction.
these are newly annexed areas
Yes,
that
that would be
before
added.
now did not.
Yes, we're not in.
And it's the gold. It's
It's the gold,
basically these
yes.
gold or what we annexed. And then you've now shown
And
us
then we have
which
the different
district.
colors to show which district we're adding
Districts.
to.
And there is a little dab in every district in there.
So I guess on this, if you think about this, and we'll send copies of this out to the mayor and Councilman Hamilton, so they'll also have opportunity to comment. But if you have comments or questions, if you could just share those with me before the council meeting, I'll mark those on here or show that someone had a suggestion to change one. Otherwise, this would be the same map you would see on the first year. Of course, you can change it. That's y'all's decision.
Any questions? Okey-doke. Thanks, Gary. Mr. Brimley.
Dewey, what this is, council, is just a sort of a house cleaning type situation. About a year and a half back, the council passed, you'll recall, the downtown overlay zones. And that wasn't placed into the code of ordinances, and that's what we're doing with this, is placing it into the code of ordinances. And we're gonna locate it where it will appear behind the amended zoning ordinance when that gets approved by council and placed into the code of ordinances. So basically, this is just placing something that's already been passed and already being enforced into the code of ordinances where it belongs.
Anybody have any questions for Randy? I thought the pictures looked the same. Any other questions for Randy on this? Okay. Next.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Randy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the first item is consideration of an industrial district agreement with RDB Commercial Properties. They are wanting to use this property for office uses. They're currently outside of the city limits. They have already signed an annexation agreement with the city as well as a water agreement. And they simply want water and sewer for the time being until they can be annexed into the city, hopefully sometime this year.
Where are they located again?
They are located off of 42nd, and they're already platted and they already have an address.
They already have water close to it.
Yes, sir. We
Kind
have
of
a-
northwest, in an area where there's already some kind of those smaller industrial districts.
I think Dover Industries is the closest industrial district.
So this is out west, 42nd?
Yes, sir.
There's water already close to it,
Yes, sir.
so it won't be, I mean, they've got to pay for the expense to bring the
They're
water
gonna
from
pay
where
for
it
the
is.
expense. They just thought that doing an industrial district would get them the water a little faster, but they're agreeable to being annexed. So like we did a few last year, we go ahead and enter into an industrial district agreement, get the water and sewer in place, and then later in the year, if the council chooses, then you may have another annexation vote to include these properties.
So what are we losing by not going ahead and annexing? Maybe you can't do it. Maybe that's your answer, you can't do it right now.
It would take a little bit longer, and the thought is this should, or at least might, get them the utilities sooner than if they just went through the annexation process, and then after that, got it.
So an industrial district will get the utilities quicker than annexation
Well,
into the city?
you have to have an agreement with us, and for these commercial areas, we usually ask them, traditional city policies being to enter into an industrial district.
But that speeds up them getting,
The goal is that it will get it through the process that they can get water to them faster.
because I was thinking when we annexed all those others in and we had this conversation about all the infrastructure that the intent is that someday we would do that, but we weren't under a timeline to do it.
Right, these are different than that situation.
That's what I'm trying to
Because
understand.
these really are adjacent to water. There's just a cost to extend the water to them. You know, you have a city policy that when someone wants water and sewer, and it's available, but it might be available down the block. It's not that far away.
but there is a cost, there have to be a contract to do that. And so they're in the process of doing that. Since they're not inside the city generally asks people to either request annexation or to request an industrial district. And we can create the industrial district faster than we can do the annexation under state law.
So the
So it-
cost to extend it, do they pay that or do we pay that?
They're gonna pay that. The customer always pays
That cost
inside
to
or
extend.
outside the city, unless the city council makes some kind of very unusual exception.
So this,
If you oversize the line or something, you might pay for that.
but this industrial is strictly for that particular business?
Just for that one business and then the second business. They're not adjacent, but they're in the same general area of town.
But as an industrial district, they don't have to comply with all the city regulations? and
Not
with-
until they're annexed. But they both actually signed or agreed to annexation. And in the future, based on this discussion, we might go ahead and try to do an annexation faster. Based on past city council direction, the staff's discussion with them was that it would be faster, considerably faster, to get the service through an industrial district than through an annexation. When the person requests voluntary annexation, if the council is agreeable to that doesn't take that long, but it's just been past city policy that the city used industrial districts first and then followed that up later at a longer period of review time before they would consider annexation.
And I agree with that. So, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. When we were talking about the industrial districts before, some of those areas that don't have city water and sewer, then that's where, isn't that where we were talking about a cost to the city to get at least those lines out there? And then it is that customer's responsibility to pay
That's-
the amount to hook up to them.
That is a possibility. That's part of what, that's gonna be Tom Kerr's presentation
Right.
to you on, the city does from time to time just extend water mains and sewer mains.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're gonna be paying for
Yeah.
most of that.
The city will pay for that, and then those businesses are responsible for the cost for their lines to connect to wherever the main.
And you're saying in this one, there's already lines
There's already
close,
there, we
it's
already
not
have water
like-
in the southwest, northwest part of town where these two industrial districts are. We already have water and sewer and close. This is the area of town where the water line that provides water to ECUD is in this general area. So it's just a matter of getting the utility service to them a little faster. Now, again, based on current council's desires, we can consider just having when we have one business that wants city services and they need to be in the city, we could consider just doing a quicker annexation without going through the industrial district if the council wants to consider that.
To me, that seems to make more sense because then they have to comply with the rules and regulations if they're building a facility. Otherwise, in the industrial district, you can kind of get around all of that.
But they may be in an area that is not annexed already. So it may be a matter of, we want to look at annexing the whole area and not just them individually.
Yeah, I see that, but his example was if you have a business that wants to do it, you can annex that.
Right,
You-
but then
you
you're
could.
kind of, if the rest of them aren't, then you're just kind of picking them and not kind of including the whole area.
Just one of the things to keep in mind, this area is kind of right in here on there, and that area that is currently not in the city, after the last round of annexation, I did get some indication from the council that that's an area you wanted to look at for the possibility of annexation. But if you were going to do an involuntary annexation where you want to be proactive, remember, the staff is planning to bring you a plan on that this year, but once you decide that, hey, we would like to consider the possibility of actually annexing that for future growth, even without the owners coming and asking, that makes it an involuntary annexation. And you can vote to consider that. You create a plan, put it on a map, and you have to wait 3 years before you could annex.
Yeah, that
So,
wasn't what I was asking.
That's a different situation.
Yeah, you were making it sound like we could either annex this business, or we could do the industrial district.
And then follow it with an annex.
And the only
as
reason
soon
we
as you
weren't
get
gonna
around to that.
annex it is because the industrial district was quicker.
To get them though,
The
water or sewer service. That's been the city's policy, that's been the reality of service connection for several years. That may be changing, consider that, to
it's
accept an
faster if
individual
you're
voluntary
in
annexation. But the catch with that is, remember, often in an industrial district, you have one of these businesses may be not adjacent to, and so in order to get to them, you would have to annex to them. One of the reasons why the council did some of these annexations is, for instance, now here you have a way to annex off of that street. And so you can annex going north, you can annex going south, or going west. And so the annexation can be faster because of part of what you did last November than it could have been in the past.
So Gary, also I was trying to kind of look through this, and I'm not seeing it, but that doesn't mean anything. In this industrial district for this particular one, is there a requirement in there that they meet current city codes for construction?
No, that's still a matter
What's the
we're
point?
negotiating with, because there's not as much, that's still an individual district
Because I was
negotiation.
thinking
It's the prior direction that I've
some of
gotten
our
from the
old
council.
ones, some of our old districts in the past have had those requirements. You
Right.
know, the city may have allowed them to opt out of fire code, but they do have to comply with
Right.
building code.
That's part of that kind of irony of these areas down here in the south that you just annexed, the 2, 3, and 4, these kind of large areas. It's ironic in that these included many areas where they were in an industrial district, and yet they actually weren't that close to water or sewer. So you have a little bit of a disconnect of why they wanted to be an industrial district in the first place, actually, because it didn't help them get water and sewer faster. Some of them have been in there for
But it
20 years.
did help them not have to follow the code on the buildings.
Right,
I
but
mean-
that's something that, as a council, you have to decide, is that really, as a matter of public policy, do you actually want to encourage that? Now, with these that are already there, the council's always been consistent in the past, and ever since I've been here this past year, that you want to leave the deal the same for these businesses that have built and have been operating.
Right.
Yes.
And that's why you can see we have some holes in there.
Right.
And we're redoing new industrial districts with them, using some of the old language.
Like Dick
But
Simmons.
with new ones, like the ones up here, we would try to use the new language. But at the end of the day, my direction is to enter into an agreement with them, and so we may have to come back to that old language. And that's subject to the council, whatever majority of you choose to do, that's the direction you can give staff. We'll follow that going forward.
Gary, can I ask on the industrial districts, I know the date, I had asked it before and I'm not really sure if we are, but do we have a mechanism, is someone following to make sure that they're paying this payment in lieu of taxes? I mean, because I know it's
We
been
don't-
forgotten.
We don't have that in place. Some years ago, there was a staff person wasn't here, and we entered into a contract with someone, or actually a contract through ECAD to help us. That person then retired from ECAD, and we entered into another contract to have that person help us. And then sometime in about the last 3 years, we just lost the mechanism. So as a follow-up to that November annexation, staff has on our to-do list to get back into the review of those collections. But
Yeah, 'cause I
we
think they
we
should
have
be
not
paying if
done
that's a
that. We
part
have
of
not
it.
gotten to that item on the
Right,
to-do.
okay.
It's on the list.
And we know there's, that are not paying, because they were talking about this being a tax that they don't have to pay now.
It was kind of embarrassing. They really weren't paying.
It's money we're losing.
Is there a way of prioritizing that? First of all, we run the process of seeing who is not paying and get that started. Because the first flag that always comes up, well, I haven't been paying anything, just like you have. So what's the biggest benefit to the city? Them paying the taxes, or paying what would be normally what they'd pay in taxes?
If four of y'all tell me that's a priority, that'll be changed as of tomorrow. That's-
I think it's a
Y'all,
priority.
I think
y'all,
it's a
you're the ones that
priority.
decide that.
I know that it's a burden, you know, to go
Well,
back in and look.
it's just
I know
work.
that.
We just can't do everything at once.
Exactly. And, but I do feel like we have really lost out on some money and that is due.
Well, we created a false solution that it's way cheaper to be in the industrial district than to be in the city. And it shouldn't be, it
It's the
should be
same.
the same, but we've created an impression that it is.
What is the reach back on that? How many years can you go back?
Well, we have not researched that because we haven't gotten to that project yet, but we will find that out starting tomorrow morning.
I guess my next question is that, you know, is that a staff member's responsibility, or is it easier for us to maybe contract with somebody else to have that part done? We're short-staffed anyway. I don't know how we could go back and,
I
mean, it's quite a bit of research, it seemed to me, as well as properly notifying the individuals that we are gonna start this, which you have been
Yes, sir.
obligated to do so, but I don't.
I'm kind of hearing that maybe one thing that I could do, that legal could do, is kind of present to you as soon as possible, kind of an overview of what your legal department does and what our current staffing is, and then let you tell.
Because
I
we
think
don't
that's-
know
I
what
think
you're
Tell me
pushing
what
out
you
of the
want
way.
done, and
I thought that's already been done though. I thought you had explained everything going on as far as staff-wise, would look like it's pretty busy.
well,
Yeah.
I try to provide that input,
So-
but we still have
Yeah.
several vacancies, and there are several
And
areas
that's
we
what I'm
could
saying.
contract with
Sure.
someone to do that specific task.
Right.
And there's no question, if we did that, we could get you a result faster.
I mean, if you paid them 20% of what they collected, we're better off than
Well,
what we
that's how you
did
do
before.
collection contracts.
You know, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. So that'd be
I
my
mean,
suggestion.
basically, there's a value placed on them already. It's just
Yes,
that
ma'am.
there's, so it's not like you're having to determine what the value is.
No, that's
It's looking at
that's
the
it's the same
value
as the
on
tax
all
rate.
of these and
Yes,
then
ma'am.
applying the tax rate.
It's just a collection issue, really.
I think it's not staff. I think it needs to be looked at as a contract
Yeah.
service outside, would be my opinion.
I agree.
Cindy, what do you think?
Well, I know that the appraisal district actually collects this for us, but they rely upon us to notify them of what industrial districts we have. So that's the part that I think staff's still gonna have to be
If we
involved with.
do all the work, they'll collect it.
Well, they do collect all the industrial tax for us. You know, and they follow up with overdue accounts or anything like that. But as far as industrial districts that have never been charged, it's probably because we haven't gotten them the information in order to do that.
And that could be, and so, you know, perhaps if we contract out, that's not a ongoing thing. You know, once we're situated and we have
And we have to
everything
back on it.
identified and then it's a matter of, once an industrial,
And
a
as you
company is
mentioned,
entered
they,
in.
a contract like that would usually be, they keep a portion of what they get. So we wouldn't pay them just to wait for something.
They get,
They keep a portion of what they get.
We already pay them to do our
Yes.
collections.
We do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the appraisal district gets paid to collect that for us. So, we just need a better
Tom,
mechanism,
can you help
making
us out
sure
there?
it gets updated.
Well, I'm sure that Anita jumped on it with both feet if she knew exactly where she needed
Yeah,
to
I'm
go.
sure she would.
No, sure.
But I just think that to me would be the number one priority. I think everything else should be secondary until we start getting a little bit of the income, and then it becomes a little bit more of a belonging.
We,
and I have 0 sense of what kind of dollars we're talking about.
I can
mean,
get that
I
for you.
mean, the larger industrial districts, the larger businesses are paying because we had, when we annexed a couple of them several years ago, it was a big impact to the tax rolls. So it just shifted from industrial district collections to tax collections. So, and I can't remember offhand what our collections are, but
One of the
several million.
probably
Appraisal
reasons,
district should be able to give us something that they think, I mean, I know you probably get what.
Yeah, we have it recorded as revenue in the general fund, so I can get the number.
as we went through that annexation process last year, and then realized we had some collection issues, and then as we're following up now, I think we have found maybe part of the disconnect with ECAD in that we're finding some errors in our descriptions and account numbers that are listed. And so, obviously, if we give you the wrong number, nobody can collect anything. And I don't know, that's really unusual, but we're still actually in the process of finalizing the legal description on the annexation, because we shared information with ECAD at the beginning of the process and we thought we were okay. When we got the final version, we're off in some of the total acres. And there's nothing unusual about being off a little bit, but we're off more than they or us are comfortable with. So we're still working through that. And that's one reason why we haven't started. We've got to verify that, and then we'll know which accounts we have.
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but like, if we have a new business that goes into our industrial district, some industrial district, you know, they build whatever, then who is the responsible party to even be reporting that to the appraisal, to be collecting on those fees? Is that an administrative thing? Is that a finance thing? Is that a legal thing?
It used to come out of the legal office.
ECAD is responsible for any improvements and making sure they get them on the roll.
Okay.
They have a service called anyway, and it's an aerial photograph. Every 2 years, they fly over the entire
okay.
county and take pictures. Anything that changes from in that 2 year period, they say, there's somebody done something here.
See, and that's what I was wondering is, you know, what's that mechanism that's even in place on anything new that comes in to get them into this fun-filled pool of money?
It really comes from the city. We provide information to ECAD, and then they maintain it and keep it current. And there's just, somehow, there's just a little margin of error that's crept in there.
Okay.
I really don't know how I got it.
I think Judy's idea is really good to see if we can contract with them, because
I
I
don't
don't
think you
know
have the
that
time.
any of us, and I don't think any of
Well,
us are
that's one that
comfortable.
really lends itself.
Well,
Okay.
and I don't think we're comfortable telling you to make that a priority when we don't know what your other, I mean, it may not in fact be a priority for our legal department.
I mean, this needs to be a friendly collection type process that, please let me notify you that, you know, this has not been done in the past, and we don't want to throw out the repo truck up it.
We, and I will follow up with ECAD also. Actually, I've just had a meeting in the last 2 weeks with the lawyers in town who do the tax work for the other government entities. And that was a very good meeting. And we were talking about how we cooperate with collecting taxes. But that's the first time I've had an opportunity to do that. And there were some stalwarts that have been doing it for a long time, but there were also a couple of new faces in there. So that communication will also help us, because while the other tax entities don't have the industrial districts, we already cooperate on general tax collection. It works, that does work very well.
So on this number 11, is that our legal department's recommendation that we do an industrial district to get these, on these two?
Yes, ma'am. I think from just in the short time I've been here, that's the fastest way that I think we can tell them we can get them water and or sewer. But we'll follow up with this possibility of maybe the next one that comes in, we might present that information preliminarily to the council before we begin our staff discussions and see if we might offer them just an individual, quick, voluntary annexation instead of going through that.
And I guess I'm still confused. If the water's close for them, then what difference does it make? Because they're gonna be the ones that pay for it from wherever it is to their business. So what would be the difference between it being quicker through an industrial rather than an annexation? I guess that's the problem I'm trying to figure out, is that we have nothing to do with it. We shouldn't. If we do, then we're looking at more costs that we have to do to provide it. But if it's their cost to tap in from wherever it is to their business, then
Why is it
what difference
faster?
would it make? And it'd be a whole lot easier if we're gonna get taxes to put it annexed. You can't go from there, I would think.
And
Yeah.
forget that first step. It seems like we're doing an extra step.
And I'm just
maybe.
questioning, I'm trying to put it right in my mind.
I think we are doing an extra step, I think that's what we had to do in the past.
And if it is, then,
But from what the council is saying, it sounds like it's not an extra step we need to go through in the future. If you just consider annexation and annex. that
unless there's a
Would ultimately be
legal
valid.
Did you say they've asked to be annexed?
They both agreed. One of them's actually already signed all the
Contract,
paperwork.
yes.
And that, the ones we did last year, they did the same
Jerry,
thing.
You want to sit down?
Jerry can talk.
You can sure sit down, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, there, hi there.
Welcome.
You know, and on that, my concern is the code compliance issues. You know, that if they go in industrial and then they build this magnificent facility that meets absolutely no code that the city has, then we're going to inherit that and have to be dealing with that.
I think we have a few notable exceptions that are appropriate for exceptions, but I think somehow we've kind of translated that into kind of generically for industrial districts. And I don't think actually most of the conversations that legal's done just in the last few months, the majority of those guys were they want to build to our city codes.
Good.
Because they are large businesses. They're not just here, they're all over. They expect to do that. That's how their architects and how their risk managers require them to do it. So we have some local exceptions I think we need to maintain. It makes business sense. But for most of these, I would agree with you. My recommendation would be you should have confidence in your basic building regulations, first off, that they're reasonable. And if they're not reasonable, you should maybe amend them.
Right.
And then, but once you're confident that they're basic health, life, safety minimums, why wouldn't we enforce those? It's for a new building. I'm not talking about going back and messing things up, but for brand new buildings, standalone, where you're not messing up an existing operation. I think that makes sense, and I think actually most of the people we deal with will accept it, but that's what they're doing anyway.
But I think that's what we were trying to ferret out, if going through this is a loophole to allow people to build something.
Well, I think that's, I think there's a small percentage of people that do that because that's somebody that thinks they're gonna save money by building a brand new structure and cutting some corners. That's not how you save money.
I guess my only question would be to answer these questions. Is there any way of seeing if there is a legal remedy that we cannot immediately put them in annexation rather than the industrial district? I mean, is there something legally there that
Well, we can
prevents
just
that
go
from
ahead and
happening?
annex.
Well, with these, I believe we could start a voluntary annexation process. I don't have that calendar. The state law has gotten complicated. I always go back, verify the login, and create a calendar.
But if it's
So with
voluntary.
that
So
being-
for right now, I think this is faster, but we can immediately
I see what you're saying. So
review that.
it's a process
Yeah.
more
It's
so
a-
than it is.
Process
Okay.
makes it
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
But the voluntary is a much shorter process
It
than
should be, absolutely.
involuntary.
Even with the legal requirements have been added, when someone voluntarily wants to be annexed, it can be a shorter process than has been in the past.
I think when we come to council, it would be important to know, you said you could check that.
Mhm.
If the process for voluntary, what the time frame is on that, because it might be appropriate to bypass the industrial district and just annex them. But if it is a long time, then it would make sense that we'd do this to accommodate their time.
It sounds like what is on that to-do list that I mentioned, that list we have of things to do that have not been done, is also having a briefing for the council on annexation, the possibility of a 3-year annexation plan. Council's looked at those in the past, it's just an update for the new council. So it sounds to me like that needs to be moved up, that list also.
In education, gracious alive, we do not want business out there to say, I don't want to be a part of the city. We want it, but it's going to be an educational process that we need to have to come out with them to let them know what it is. Because there was a lot of questions and concerns. I mean, it was not just, it was along the lines that some were pretty upset.
On this last go-round, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing we had to do, the final vote on, and we weren't a part of all of that. We all looked at Dewey like.
All right. Anything else that we need to talk about on the RDP? Then there's another one, Burwell.
Yes, sir. Burwell is the same situation. There's actually a portion of the Burwell property that's within city limits. It does not currently have any water or sewer. Most of their property is actually outside of city limits, and they are amenable to voluntary annexation as well. We do not have an agreement signed as of yet. We're currently having emails passed back and forth in the agreement, but they are ready to sign the paperwork.
And is the Burwell, I think I said both of these were northwest. I think the Burwell is just off of 385 south.
Yes, it's south.
And so that one is one where they're already partially in, partially out. This is the second company in that same situation. One of the annexations in November was a company part in and part out. And so that's another one that they're agreeable, they want to be annexed, they just thought
So
this
is
was
there
a faster way.
is there water close to them, or?
There is water going out 385. I'm not sure how close it is to this specific location.
We have a water main, transmission main all the way down 385, about 5 miles, so there's water on 385. They would need
So
to put some infrastructure.
we're only obligated to have water within how far, Tom, of the facility that, for instance, this facility, they want water, so are we close enough with 5 miles that they can?
We're not actually obligated to be within any distance of them. If they want water, they will have to extend.
Okay.
And that's another area we need a little more education, and as we go through that process, each time we've talked about it, that's come up again. It's also on our to-do.
So is there anything particular about Burwell that, outside of that?
No, sir.
Any other questions from that, council? Dawson, thank you. Didn't mean to have you stand up here for the last 30 minutes, but thank you.
Glad you drew that short stick.
Is 13, is that gonna be Tom? or-
That's me.
Okay.
This is the enterprise, I'm pitch hitting for the city manager who's in Austin at the legislature. The council supported an application from this same Liberty Oilfield Services last fall to do this. At the time, we had just an error, a mix-up in their paperwork where they said they were inside a already created enterprise zone, and they're actually close to, but not actually inside the enterprise zone. However, they still qualify under state law for what we call an enterprise zone project. And except the requirements are a little bit different. And really the requirements are something you'll probably like better. Instead of having 25 jobs, they have to have 35. So while it's a little embarrassing to have to bring this back to you, to ask you to re-adopt it. It's actually in our interest to do that. We're getting another 10 jobs from them.
Were y'all here when that was done?
No.
No,
didn't
but
think y'all
we
were.
heard their presentation
Okay.
on the sales
Right, on the
tax
sales
rebate.
tax, but I didn't know if y'all were here on
We
the other
did,
one.
yeah.
So this is really just an error.
It's a cleanup, and
Okay.
they're gonna agree to create more jobs.
Okay, and there's nothing more than us just nominating them to the state for this acceptance. So,
That's right.
Okay.
The state law requires the local elected city council to sign off and tell Austin, yes, we'd like you to consider them for your state money incentive.
It's okay, everybody. Okay, Mr. Kerr.
Thank you. Wanted to follow up, update and introduce some of you to, I think the newer council probably hadn't been present when we were talking about some of this on a cost of service and rate study for utilities. So I'll back up a little bit. Back several months ago, of course, we started to identify through our water and wastewater master plan facilities that are coming that we need to put in place in order for development to continue to occur. We've talked, I think, a little bit, I think in orientation, some of water system, wastewater system that we're needing to get up into the northeast area. We have water systems on the northeast area that we're gonna need to do on the southwest area, and that's new type of construction. And the water wastewater master plan is identifying these and what our cost projections look like for those. As well as with those are water mains that we have in the system that are starting to fail or have been failing and we need to replace. So that's another map, that's a rehabilitation type system, which also identifies more money that we need. Money's the topic, right? And then so on the wastewater system as well, we have, some of you may or may not know, but we have quite a bit of AC pipe here in the sewer system, which is not real common, but it's in the alleys. It's a smaller pipe, but once it starts to fail, then we need to go in and replace that as well. So we have a fair bit of rehabilitation work. All cities do. This is part of the infrastructure. It's been there for decades, and now it's starting to go. So those are some major dollars that we're identifying that we need. We also at that time we discussed a contract that we had to go into because we have no longer been able to maintain our tap schedules. We were 128 taps out. We just don't have enough staff, and we just could not stay up on the taps. So we contracted for that operation. When we did so, the contract came back at significantly higher cost than what we had experienced in the past. We charge a customer $1,000 for a 1-inch tap. It now costs me $4,200 to have the contractor do that tap. And so when we looked at our revenues and our Cindy said, where are you gonna pay for that? And I said, where's Cindy? But we had to use reserves right now in order to handle that because it's not built into our rates. It was just an emergency type situation we needed to go into. And so council allowed us at that time to use reserves, our fund reserve. But at that time, we realized that all these things are happening. We need to look at what our needs are in terms of rate structure. What is going to happen? How are we going to handle these types of expenses and make sure that we can keep the city in what it needs. Make sure that we keep the mains in good shape. Make sure we extend new mains. So from that, one other component associated with this is the Ector County Utility District, West Odessa. We supply them water under a wholesale contract. That contract expires in September of 2019. Under the last phase of this contract, which was a 5-year, this is a 5-year we're in contract, was for them to do a master plan just like we're doing, and for them to start developing their own facilities and personnel so that they can be standalone. So we don't have to go out and fix their mains for them, and that we don't have to do those types of administrative services and things for them either, so that they would build their own system. And they have been working very hard at that. It's going to take them probably another 5 years to finish that, but they are definitely starting on that. In fact, y'all seen where they have some rate impacts that are going on because they're needing to put in tanks and things like that. But our rate structure to them is going to be studied, need to be studied as well, so that we are charging them appropriately and that they are paying. We can identify how much of the service may be water distribution, so that if they develop their own staff for water distribution, we can pull that out of the rate. Okay, just pull that off the contract and say, okay, you don't have to pay that anymore. And so when all that being brought together, we need to conduct a cost of service and rate study so that we can make sure we're doing business well. So we have identified a company that is working with Kimley Horn on our water and wastewater master plan. So they're familiar. It's a financial consulting firm company. They're financial and management consultants. Their name is NewGen. They're a sub-consultant to Kimley Horn on this study, so they are familiar with the costs that are being identified for us. And so they have familiarity with us, with our costs, and they are a very qualified firm. We have looked into their experience. They've done a lot of studies throughout Texas. The firm itself has actually been established since 2012, so it's not an old firm, but the people in the firm came from other companies that did this type of thing. But they've done many studies in water, wastewater, stormwater, electric, gas, many areas. They've even represented people in Public Utility Commission disputes and those types of things on rates. So they are familiar with us. They do have that type of experience and look very qualified. So we asked them to prepare a proposal for us on what it would take to do a study. We're trying to, one, we want to get this done as quick as possible because we need to stay ahead of the curve, I guess, as much as we can, but also that the rate, the contract with ECOD comes up in 29 September, so we would like to try and have something that we can work with by that time. So in talking with having a proposal from them, they pulled together, gave us a proposal. Our objectives are to identify our actual costs, identify our future needs, functionalize our costs. So what does it cost to keep up the mains? What does it cost to take the treatment? What does it cost to do these things? I know we have budget numbers for those, but they will line in and actualize those costs, make them appropriate measures. Also project them out based on future costs and things like that. Develop appropriation of costs for the customer classes. So they'll take our customer classes, and so how much does a resident actually cost us, or get us close to that number so that we're not charging a resident more than we should and charging someone else less. Evaluate and consider new rate structure as appropriate. Develop scenarios and recommendations, and we will engage counsel for your consideration and discernment. So in their scope of proposal, they have 5 tasks. Task 1 is data collection and project kickoff. Data collection is a huge thing. They're going to get all our billing data, not specific to the individual, but specific to the class and those types of things, so they can analyze how our revenues are coming in. Also get our budgets and our actual expenditures and see how those are done. Task 2 is a revenue requirement and financial plan development. So how much money do we need, and then how do we plan that out? Task 3 is a cost of service analysis and a customer class cost allocation that we're talking about. Task 4 is the actual rate design, and they have models that they use for this. There's AWW, American Water Works Association, and other types of industry standards that are used to model up rate structures. And then they'll provide results to us, and we'll come to council with those for your consideration. And there'll be some discussion in that case, how do you want the rate structure to actually work? There's a couple of ways you can handle rate structures. One of the things that is fairly common in terms of large utilities like water utilities is we don't get our fixed costs. We generally achieve very little of our fixed costs in our base rate. If you had what you would call an ideal rate structure, your fixed costs would cover, your base rate would cover all your fixed costs, because no matter what, it still costs me that much to pay for the plant construction, whether you take a gallon or not. But almost no major utilities are able to do that. It's not considered real palpable, I guess. So anyway, there's a means to look at the rate structures to see how it works best. We'll need to coordinate, obviously, very, very much with the billing and collections, finance and budget, All of those areas will be very critical to the function here. The timetable in their proposal is 90 to 120 days to get us from notice to proceed to provide us a draft of that document. And their cost is not to exceed $47,500. So that is within city manager's authorizations. So if there's no questions or concerns from council, we would like to proceed that way, but otherwise we can evaluate some other things.
Tom, when's our wastewater, when is that other study by Kimley Horn gonna be finished?
The water and wastewater, I have the drafts right now. There's a few things that I'm wanting them to add and finish up. They're doing the financial portion of this right now, and it's a high level where they're saying, okay, those dollars, what methods can you use to pay for those and those types of things. So that's being done. I would hope to be back to you within 6 weeks, something like that, so because we want you to review the plan and then adopt it as you find appropriate.
Do you know when the county begins their budget process?
I'm not familiar with their process.
The reason that I ask is because if potentially we're looking at a substantial increase in what our fees to them will be.
Oh, you're talking about ECUD?
Right. Man, a heads up, if they have not, is it?
It's that they've already implemented a rate increase. It's going into effect this month, February.
Okay.
They did a drastic increase in their rates.
They can adjust their rates as you can. We can come to you in the middle of the year if we need to. But they can adjust them. But yes, I imagine their budget process is, like you say, starting. If they work on it, counties usually go from October 1. Do they do state budgeting in October?
I think the appraisal district's on a 9/30 fiscal year end as well.
My only thing is that they have a heads up.
They're fully aware of what we're doing because we're partnered on this plan. We're working very closely in the same, we're both using Kimley Horn on our plans. The new gen is actually working with them on their financials. The reason that their rate structure is happening, they're about to bond $50 million, a little less than $50 million worth of work to put up, I think, 2 elevated tanks, a large ground storage tank, pump stations.
I think it's gonna be really prudent to get this study because we're gonna have huge decisions on how we're gonna get the money for the needed infrastructure, so this would be very important to us.
I guess my question would be along the lines of Deidre's, is how long do you have that you must give notice before you do raise the rates? Is there a time period that's required, or is it?
For the city?
Yes.
I don't believe there's a mandatory time period that you have to wait to implement it. I think generally it'll probably be a couple of readings on the ordinance to set the rates and those types of things. And then once that's approved, generally it's at least 30 days before you would implement so that building and collections can put the new rates in.
So this is gonna be done by June?
Yes, sir.
And after reviewing, et cetera, so it may come to us in July, we need to get started.
We generally try to implement on October 1 if possible.
I want to be looking at all kinds of
Supposed to be saying in
avenues
that contract in
Yes.
and to
September.
avoid private residents getting another increase.
I think we talked a little bit to you about other types of
Yeah.
methods of revenues.
Right.
And so we are also talking to consultants about that, to try and come forward to you to see if y'all want to look at those things.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems for us is that some of these bonds are gonna be coming up soon, probably before we can implement some of those other types of rates or revenue structures. So we'll work with this consultant to look at those and consider those in terms of how they impact what we're doing. But the timing is gonna be a little bit of something.
So the we bless this?
Lord, yes.
That's what everybody says about it.
You're no fun.
We have to bless it. It's where the time's crunch.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Anybody
Thank
else? Any other questions for Tom? Seems to be the last on the agenda. Last time. Do you
Well,
have anything?
I need to add something. We do need the council to consider their appointments to boards. There's several boards that are pretty anxious about having their boards complete, and that would be ODC and MOUTD. Those are the ones I'm aware of. I'm not sure if there's any others that are critical at this point. Do you know, Norma? If those two are.
MOUTD, that's the Easy Rider.
And we have one vacancy with Mike Carter resigned.
On the Easy Rider.
Yes.
So,
And you're on it now, right?
so how many do we have?
Easy Rider is a 6-member board, and you have 2 council members, so you have 4 appointees.
Odessa has 4 appointees.
Yes, and Midland has the same, they have the
You-
same number.
You changed to 2 of your official council appointees to, you have 4 more. You have some incumbents in those, which you could reappoint, or you can replace the other 4. Or, well, one of those, you know, you have Mr. Gardner. So you have 3 others that you
And the other is,
consider.
And those
Yeah,
are by
Blackstone.
district.
Thomas Blackstone is one.
That's by the whole council.
Armando, with the county commissioners is one. Chris Flores, and Bilbo.
No, Bill's off. Dewey replaced Bill.
Oh, with,
He's on the board. Dewey's on the
no,
board.
Bill was not a council member.
No, they only had 1 council member, and then this council decided to put 2 council members on the MOUTD board.
So it's Dewey and
Me.
Yeah. Okay,
And
so we need to get busy
ODC,
on that Tuesday then?
I was thinking we were gonna figure out what, but I was thinking that we had sort of unofficially agreed that the existing ODC board members, because their terms expired in December of this year, we were gonna leave that in place. Did I just dream that?
We reappointed those.
The 2 that
The 2 that were
that-
expiring, but that was what I understood,
Yeah,
was
on
that as
the
the other
other
2
3.
come up, or whatever, that,
We'd have a plan on how
Yes.
we were gonna.
Yes.
But that's not what has come up yet, right? So we're good?
we're good on ODC.
Well, if that's what you want to do, you just need to take that official
You need
action.
to take that
at the next
action.
council.
Oh.
That
Okay.
hasn't been
Okay, I
taken.
see what you're saying.
You know,
You can do that officially, have just someone make.
so it
the motion.
was,
It's
It was
Betsy,
Bet-
it's Betsy.
it's the other 3 that come up,
We reappointed
This year.
Melanie and June
because they were up in
Collins.
December
Right.
of
Yeah.
18, and
And
so they
now-
were reappointed, I see what
Yeah.
you're saying.
And now it's Betsy and Ted Tumanowski and
Tim Edgman.
Tim
Tim
Edgman.
I didn't bring my deal with me. I didn't think Betsy was up until December.
Well, they're
December
all
of this year.
December, that's what we're
Yes.
saying. And so we kind of, we sort of collectively said, we'll figure out a process for appointing new members. But in the meantime, these 3 could finish out their term this year. That's
Till December.
till December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just FYI heads up, Betsy will expire. She'll meet her.
Right.
Her termination.
Yeah,
Right.
because I really wanted her to
To
finish out.
Yes.
And, but yeah, I knew she would
So all
expire.
3 of them, I know they won't expire, but they'll finish out.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct.
Betsy's could not be reappointed.
Right.
So your action really, it sounds like what you want to do is you want to just verify those existing terms, let them serve out those terms, because you would have the authority to say, well, they may have another year term, but I want to change them now because you're the new council. But it sounds like your consensus is you want to leave those 3 for those terms to run through December, and then
And
December
you'll make a
this year.
decision
different.
And
next
then
December.
we're, in the
But we gotta
meantime-
come up with a process,
That's
because individually, we have more than one district.
Well, that's one of
court.
the boards that I believe that you said you wanted to do as a group. Like the
Instead of by
MOUTD and the
districts.
ODC were both
I had
groups you
no
wanted to do as a group rather than
That's
an
fine.
individual.
And we just had
So we
more
just-
important things, right? I mean, that process hadn't been
Right.
developed.
So we need to
just-
formally do this, is what you're saying in the action
At
this coming
the, you can do
Tuesday?
it, there'll be an agenda item, Norma will present that to you.
And then we
Last
work
time.
on a process.
For
Yes.
that, to
Okay.
replace them.
Gotcha.
Clear as
So
mud,
do y'all-
Norma?
Sure.
So do y'all need any more information as far as MOUTD goes?
Is there any other
in order to-
applicants? Don't we need one more one more appointee, so is there
Or-
other applicants?
Well, I mean, if you wanna keep
MOUT.
your incumbents or not.
What you probably would like, what the staff is suggesting is if you can, between now and that next council meeting, ask some questions about your incumbents on the MOUTD, how they've been doing. Do you want to reappoint them? Do you want to appoint somebody else? And if somebody else, you need to give us a name.
And I'll check my board applications to see if there's any citizens
That
who
would be-
applied that are interested in serving on the MOUTD.
Are those the two that are critical?
They are, because they're wanting to, they need to replace some officers.
They're
And-
kind of on
and-
hold. too.
Yeah, and they want to know whether they're still on the board or
Are
not.
there any others?
Those are the only two I'm aware of. I don't, are you aware of
The-
any others?
There's some that still have some vacancies.
There's
I
some
think.
that are
There's some that have
vacancies, but they're
vacancies
not
because you
urgent.
added to the board, so. But,
And just FYI, the letters went out to the board members, all the board members, just notifying them that council's restructuring and making changes. So,
That's very good.
And could I just mention one other thing? No action, but the mayor mentioned to me last week that he wanted me to come up with some kind of just a starting point draft on the ethics ordinance. And so I would encourage you, if you have any ideas, to let me know, because there's all kinds of ethics ordinances. And, on this one, I can write down your thoughts, but I don't, it's a little harder for me to just kind of create something when I'm not totally sure what you want. But the mayor said, create something, send it to him, and let y'all take it apart, so.
Can you
I'm
share
gonna
what
send you
his
something.
thought was, so that we kind of know, or no?
I can't, so I'm gonna kind of probably come up with a draft that kind of has all the different things that cities sometimes put in ethics ordinance, so that you can, sometimes, it's easier to take out or rewrite than
Yeah.
to create, so.
Okay.
I'll give you a starting point.
Okay, I was thinking that you had suggested that we sort of use that one that we signed as the starting point and add to it.
I mean, if it's
or-
already in place, the one that we had in place for, what was
TxDOT.
it? Yes.
Oh, the
Yeah.
textile one, okay.
The
I mean, it pretty well
and-
covered
and
most
said,
of the.
should we start with that and see?
Take a look at it.
I mean, I
it had
remember
a,
you.
yeah, it had a code of, it had a conflict of interest, it had things associated with that you need to be aware of, so it was, it comes from TxDOT, what,
So that'll also be on your next agenda as a starting point.
Okay.
Woo,
Anything else?
woo.
I know it. This is the work.
And Norma, we
You
get
what's
those
called work?
applications to you. Yes.
You
And I'll
know,
forward
you
them
got through the
Okay.
first 10 items in 10 minutes.
We're on time,
and
I'm
I
still
thought,
thinking over there,
wow.
poor lady over there just, had to stand up.
She's thinking, I wish I'd worn flats.
All right, we're adjourned, I presume. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Dewey.